It was phenomenal. It was. I was expecting it to be much more embarrassing, but you did a great job.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. It's always good to have you on and have you around and talk to you for a little bit. And we missed that you guys were supposed to bring a big group out in April, and unfortunately that didn't happen due to the current circumstances. But can't wait to have you guys out again with a bunch of WRXers and geek out with you for a little bit again.
100%. I mean, I'm the same way. It was one of those things that, after we did it last year with the group, and it was an absolute blast, and it was like kind of a mind-blowing experience for not only the members who have never seen all the stuff that you were showing them, but also for like myself and Johnny Wonder who were there. And we work in this, with guys like you and all the time, and Marshall and these people who work in the business, and it's still every time you go, you learn something new, and it's so fun. So hopefully we'll get that scheduled, and I'm excited to get back out there and get down to some warm, nice California weather.
For sure, man. But, we always love having you out here and the Wonder Man and everybody. So let's just kick this thing off. So to give a little background about yourself, why did you start with WRX? What was the connection, in 2016 whenever you got your start with them?
Well, I mean, I've been a member of GolfWRX, just a forum member since 2006, like a year after it started. I hung out on Bomb Squad Golf like a lot of guys did, talking equipment, whatever. And then, things started to change over there, the atmosphere and what it was about. And a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, have you heard of this GolfWRX?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "You should check it out. It's got a cool forum, whatever." And I joined up there to literally get information about building golf clubs. I was just into like regripping, just starting to reshaft stuff, whatever, and all that information. I didn't know how to do a lot of it, so I'd go in there and ask a lot of questions, read a lot of posts, and it was just that's what I did. I loved doing it. I loved reading more about different shafts, whatever. And then probably in 2012, I went on a trip to Callaway through Golf WRX, much like we came out to Fujikura. I was fortunate enough to get selected. I went out and I met, the editor at the time, Zach, another guy named Rob. I met all these guys from
Oh yeah.
WRX, and I just kind of became friends with them. And you continue texting these guys and all that, and you just keep a relationship. And then I met Richard, the owner of Golf WRX,
Yeah.
just like a year or two after that. I think it was actually at a demo day. And he came up and he was taking pictures, all that, and he had his Golf WRX jacket on or quarter zip, and introduced himself and all that. And we kind of like he's a local Metro Detroit guy, so we kind of kept in touch. And then in 2016, we were just kind of texting back and forth about gear or playing golf or whatever, like we normally did. And he was just like, "Hey man, you should come work for us." And I was kind of like, "Oh, okay, like what am I gonna do there?" Like, sure. And we went, and my interview was playing 18 holes while we talked about working there. And the next thing you know, I've been an employee for it'll be going on almost it'll be going on 4 years this fall, which is wild. It feels like it's been a year. So yeah, it just kind of fell into my lap, which was amazing, and I've
That's
been really happy since.
and we all know that's what happens when you're having fun, man. You don't really realize what's going on. And I'm coming up on 2 years already with Fuji, and it's hard to
Yeah.
believe it's already been 2 years. So speaking of how much having fun with your job, what's the best part? Like what do you wake up in the morning you're excited to do in your routine? What do you love about your job?
I mean, the best thing about working in the golf industry is the other people in golf. I mean, when you get to talk to all these people who work at, like me, yourself and Eric and Marshall and all the guys at Fuji, but I mean, every company out there that's in the golf industry, like, is filled with really great people,
For
and
sure.
being able to kind of interact with them every day is awesome. Because I think, there's people who have OEM biases on club, shaft, whatever, and if you knew the people who work behind the scenes building the products that are there, you would never have a bias, because everybody's there to make better golf equipment, to make you play better golf. Like, it's a passion, and they're not just doing it to put money in their pocket. I mean, yes, we all have jobs, but when you meet everybody and you realize, like, man, like, there's a ton of passion to make people better golfers, and all that. It's just fun to talk to to talk to people like yourself and everybody else. And those relationships are just, that's the best part of the day, because not only are you going to do some business, do some work, but you're probably going to chat a little bit about, like, "Hey, how's your game? Did you play
Totally.
recently?"
Yeah.
Whatever. And that stuff is, it makes the day a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. I love doing that with you as well. Anytime I see you're out there, I mean, either through the Instagram story or texting you,
I
what's
know.
going on? How's it going? No, not a double, not a bogey. Let's get those birdies back on the board. So speaking of your
Yeah.
golf game, why don't you kind of inform the listeners as to your swing speed, your ball speed, like swing type, give them an idea, what helps with this is when we talk about these things, it lets them kind of identify with certain parts of your swing or the shaft you're playing, so they can better understand that. So, if you don't mind, just kind of dive into your game a little bit.
Yeah, well, my game is not in a great place at the moment. I'll admit that, but it's all right. I'm still having fun. So my game, I'm a short guy. I'm a short, stocky dude. So I'm only 5'9". So my swing is fairly compact in terms of, I don't bring it really past parallel. I don't have a huge arc like some of the tall, thin guys or big guys like yourself who have that. So my swing's short, compact. My driver swing speed's about 108-ish, right around. And for me, I'm a guy who when I kind of get when I miss it, I kind of get swing around the body over the top and I smother it left. So that's kind of the thing that I'm always wary about. But I come into the ball pretty flat, so I hit a pretty flat ball. I don't hit it super high. I'll swing down on it a little bit depending on where the groove is. I pretty much play a fairly straight ball when I'm hitting it well. Maybe a little bit of a draw, but I've hit it pretty straight when I'm hitting it good. And like I said, my big mess is that smothered hook. Um, I tend not, the hands stay in front of the club, so I don't really flip it. I don't add a lot of loft. Like I said, I hit it pretty flat. So, that's my driver game. My iron game, same thing. I hit it pretty flat. I do get a little steep, which is kind of weird that I'm steep, but I hit it flat. But
Yeah,
it's kind of like a conundrum wrapped in a riddle. Like I don't understand how that works, but it does. So I'm a guy who, I look for more bounce in my wedges. I look for, shafts that fly a little higher. I don't look for the crazy low launch stuff. I don't chase those. It's just not my game. Um, and my, iron swing speed, I think when I got fit last time, I was kind of a right around 90, high 80s, low 90 type guy.
yeah,
So, I don't crush my irons. I really don't crush driver that much. I mean, if I hit 270, 280, like I'm super stoked, with the drive for me. So
totally.
that's kind of my swing, and it's a little more inconsistent this year than past, but that's all right.
Well, you've painted that picture perfectly. I think if you can't visualize what this golf swing looks like after that, then you probably need to figure out another way to look at it. So well done with that. So when you're talking about your driver, like what's that ideal shot shape? What are you looking for in a driver shaft?
So for me, I mean, the shot shape for me is if I can hit it straight to maybe just even a slight draw or slight fade. Like I'm fine with a little bit of movement either side. If I could pick the perfect shot, I'd probably love to have a little bit of a fade because I feel like the miss there is more controllable.
Totally,
When you
I
hit
agree.
that big hook or that big draw, sometimes it just gets away and that thing will run through the fairway. It'll run out, and I'll sacrifice a little distance for that bit of control if I can hit a little fade. And like I just said, for me in a driver shaft, the biggest thing is, let's get a little more launch. Let's find something mid to mid high launch. Spin, I don't chase crazy spin numbers. I'm not looking for the lowest spinning shaft out there.
Yeah,
I like having a little spin. I think it adds a little consistency to my shot.
for sure.
And also, I like something that's smooth but a little bit stout. I mean, I like it to be smooth. I like it to be lively, but I don't want it like super flexible. So
Right.
I probably should, I play a lot of X Flex, like 60-gram X's. I probably could play some stiff stuff that was tipped and maybe find a little more distance. But in terms of the feel, those mid to mid high launch shafts that have a little liveliness to them, but still play a little stiffer is kind of what I look for. And thankfully, I found found a couple that have worked well for me this year, which is great.
Yeah, and let's talk about those. So, what have you gone through? The last two or three shafts, and I know you're a big Fujikura guy, so we can. That's a pretty easy thing for you to talk about without having to skip over anything.
Yep.
What are your last few that you've had success with, and why has one been replaced? Go through kind of your last couple.
So, I mean, the big thing for me in terms of driver shafts, especially recently, was last year when Ventus hit, and I tried. Ventus. I tried all three: Ventus Blue, Black, and Red.
Yep.
And Blue just kind of fit for me. And again, I think I could play Blue or Red. Black is a great shaft, and it's funny because on my podcast I get asked the most about Ventus Black and how it plays, and
I
it's the
hear it
one
all
that
the
fits me
time on
the
yours, by the way. I hear it all the
yeah.
time.
Like people always ask, "Well, how's Venice Black?" And I'm like, "Black is a great shaft if it fits your swing. It's just it doesn't fit my swing." And I played a couple rounds with it. I mean, it's a good shaft for the guy who needs it, but for me, it flies too flat. I don't find enough distance out of it, and I don't love seeing the window that it creates. But for me, Ventus Blue was kind of a big game changer. I really liked the consistency of it. That was the big thing that stood out to me. In terms of window, it's definitely a mid-launch shaft. I wouldn't
Yeah.
call it mid-high. I'd say it's a true mid, and it does reduce some spin. But I went right away to that when it came out. Put it right in the driver, and I played that up until well, actually, I'll go back even before that. So right before that, I played Atmos Tour Spec Black,
Hmm.
and Black again. It was one of those ones where it probably wasn't the perfect launch condition, but I'd add a little loft to the driver or something like that, and it worked.
And
Um,
let me just interject. You liked that because you were talking earlier. You liked that real stiff feel,
yeah,
but with some play. So that's why you went that direction.
and butt stiffness. I mean, I've got kind of a jerky transition. I'm not a smooth swinger, so when I get to the top, like when I go down, it's not a smooth thing. It's kind of violent. So anything with a kind of a stiff handle in it tends to offer me better performance. And so Tour Spec Black, Ventus Blue, those two both have really stiff handles, have worked really well for me. And then this year, I'm going to have to plug you again, and I hate giving you the big head,
Bring it.
but a guy was on the phone call, or was on the phone with me, and said, "Man, you're playing that Sim Max. You should really try Motori XF3." And I was like, "All right, I'll do it." So a
I'm
box
not going to
shows
pat
up, and
myself on the back, but I am a little bit.
yeah, some gentleman named Austin. I don't know. So I put that in the bag in my Sim Max, and that and Ventus have been kind of going back and forth. And Motori X F3 definitely is more lively. I mean, you definitely feel it kick. It definitely feels like it's adding ball speed to the shot, where Ventus does have that little more boardy feel.
Hmm.
F3 launches a touch higher. I mean, in terms of window, I would call that one mid-high, where Ventus would be like a true mid.
That's
But both
exactly how
those
I
are,
profile it too, for sure.
yeah. And I tried F1. I mean, when I was out there,
Yep.
Johnny Wonder and I came out back in, geez, October or whatever it was, and we had to hit kind of a, pre-release. You had the F1s in the office there, and we got to hit them. And F1, it felt great. It was really solid, but I just knew that just wasn't for me. It was, and again, another little bit more low launch, low spin. Uh, and yeah, F3 and Motori XF3 and Ventus Blue are kind of the two that I swap between right now. And both of them, are just, they're kind of what I'm looking for, that mid to mid high launch. They're active, but they're still kind of stout. And,
Yep.
they're shafts they're easy to turn over, but they don't add a whole lot of draw to the shot.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've found the same thing within Ventus Blue myself, like in my 3 wood. So I'm going to kind of transition to our 3 woods now. But with the 3 wood, it's unbelievable how straight that thing goes off the turf or even off the tee box. Like it's my dependable club when I step up there and I need to either hit one and hit a par 5 and 2, or hit this straight just fairway finder off the tee box. So let's talk about your fairway wood now. Like what's going on in there?
So my fairway wood was a club that it was the oldest club in my bag up until this year, and it was in a Callaway XR16 all
Hmm.
through, geez, since 2016 when I got it, and had another shaft that was a little that was a similar profile to Ventus Red. Got my hands on a Ventus Red 7X and put that in, and ball flight was really similar to the shaft I had in there before, and but I had some consistency, or the consistency got better, as well as it was just a better feeling shaft. The
Yeah.
shaft I had there before is one of those ones that I always say it performs great, but it's never has been like the best feeling shaft in the world. It's always a little more harsh.
Yeah.
Where Ventus Red is smooth, still offers you that little higher ball flight, so it helps for me elevate it off the turf, especially because for me, like I said, I hit a flat ball, and if I played Ventus Blue, I'd be kind of hitting shots that if I got into the green, they'd hit and have a ton of release. Where
Which is not
red, I
what you
get
want. Yeah.
No, exactly. And red, I mean, I can hit it higher, and when it gets to the green, the release is definitely controllable, or at least predictable. So for me, Ventus Red has been really good in that aspect because I can still hit it high, and a lot of people I know, myself included, you get some of these higher launching shafts in your hand, and they immediately feel either loose or that you're going to miss it one way or another. It has that active feel that I don't think you're used to, especially from
Mhm.
driver. And that's the one thing with Ventus Red, with that velo core in the tip, it still is really stable. It's still really consistent, but you're still going to get the height. And that is something that I think a lot of people struggle to find. So they play a lot of lower launching shafts in fairways, especially just because they don't like the feel of higher launching shafts. And red, it's kind of a good combination of both. And the other thing with red is that it doesn't launch as high. Like I think people think like this thing just hits moon balls. It's really not. Like it's kind of like a mid high thing. It's not a ton
E-
higher than blue.
Exactly. Even kind of a mid to mid high. Like it's
Yeah.
just approaching mid high. And I think a lot of the reason why you like red the way that you do is because of the handle section. It's so stiff in the handle section. It's actually as stiff as the Ventus Black is in the handle section. So you have that ability to load. We've just reduced the stiffness a little bit in the mid to tip section to where those are a little bit softer than the blue and the black are, to where we can get that launch to happen. So you're seeing that a little bit higher mid to mid high ball flight. So that's kind of, whenever you said you fell in love with Ventus Red, I was like, that makes complete sense because he does aggressively load, through his transition. It's staying with him, it's stable, but now he's getting the launching needs too. So this is not, just because it's painted red does not mean it's for the old guys. Like there are guys in the office that have over 110 mile per hour ball speed that are playing this in their 3 woods and their drivers. So don't think of this as like an old guy's shaft to anybody listening out there. Like it is far from the truth. And if you haven't learned anything so far, you might as well just turn this thing off, because this is I couldn't have written this better myself. So um, let's keep talking though. Let's talk about some iron shafts, this mystery box that I sent you a couple weeks back while we were in quarantine. We sent you some pros, we sent you some MCIs, we sent you
Yep.
a putter shaft. So let's talk about those guys. And my biggest question, first off, what did you find the biggest difference between pro and MCI?
I mean, the biggest difference there, which I was actually really surprised about, because I think again, a lot of people have these, ideas that graphite iron shafts are for people who need to, who need ball speed and need to hit it high, and who don't swing it fast anymore. And
Hmm.
they don't realize that there's so many graphite iron shafts out there now built for better, stronger tour caliber swings. And I think the biggest thing that I noticed was hitting them side by side was MCI was substantially lower launching than Pro.
Hmm.
And I mean, I know you go on the website and you go to Fujikura.com and you look it up and it says, MCI is kind of mid or mid low, and then Pro is mid high, and you go, okay, yeah, whatever. They're probably going to be pretty similar. And the first swing, I mean, the biggest thing I noticed was MCI was such a flatter ball flight. Overall apex was just much lower than Pro was.
Hmm.
Distance wise, they pretty much ended up in the same place. But and feel, I mean, MCI's probably got a touch more of a solid feel, probably because of that steel in the tip section.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the smoothness of both is really good. But the biggest thing I noticed was that if you need a lower ball flight, MCI definitely is a more mid ball flight type shaft, if not mid low for me. Where Pro is more my game, where I need a little more height, and that helps kind of get the ball up in the air. Um, and again, the graphite just has such a good feel to it. It's so smooth. It reduces a ton of vibration, especially if you hit it off the heel, hit it thin, hit it off the toe. It doesn't rattle fillings out of your mouth. I mean,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
reduces so much of that. But the biggest thing is ball flight between the two. And I didn't think it was going to be as big or as noticeable as it was. And it was really right out of like the first shots.
Yeah, and that's the, I keep saying this, but that's kind of the beauty of what we've done with those two. We've created profiles that are stiff enough for basically any swing out there. So for those people that think that they can't play graphite or shouldn't play graphite, I think there's some guys on tour that are proving that wrong right now. I think we're also seeing some extremely consistent stuff come out of at graphite as well. We're also able to manipulate materials and orientations to create the exact profile we need, where our counterparts in steel are not able to do so other than maybe through stepping it. If you want to go stiffer with steel, you got to go heavier. Where graphite, we don't
Yeah.
have to. You know, we create graphite shafts for a reason, right? So we have a 65 R2 all the way up to a 115 Tour Spec X, and that covers the entire gamut. Anybody can swing these things. There's guys on tour that have played them. You know what I mean? So this is such a passion project for me, is to inform and educate on graphite iron shafts, because I really think people are missing the boat and the opportunity to play something that's better for their game.
I agree 100%. I mean, I moved to graphite back in, it was probably '07, was my first like dabble in, and
Yeah,
it was one of those things where I had tendonitis in my left shoulder, and I was reading up, people were saying, hey, if you play graphite iron shafts when you hit off mats, it helps reduce the vibration. So that was why I moved over to it, and then I didn't play steel again until I basically started working for WRX. So I mean, for 10 years basically, I played nothing but graphite shafts, and I played every graphite shaft out there.
yeah,
And that was the biggest thing, was talking to people, especially when I did the Callaway, the demo day stuff. When people come in and, oh yeah, I've got my wrist or I got tennis elbow, whatever. You ever thought about graphite? No, that's for old people, or that's for women, or that's for whoever. And you're going, it's really not. Like it's for anybody. Like I'm playing graphite. They make 100+ gram graphite shafts, and they make stuff that isn't super high watt, like all this. And I think a lot of people still don't trust it,
yeah,
and it's gotten so much better. And I think the problem was back in the early 2000s. Sure, there probably was some consistency issues and some distance control issues, and they only did fly high because they were only super light. But now, yeah, I mean the consistency now in graphite shafts is so much better, and just the overall performance is just amazing at every level, whether it's a 60-gram shaft or it's 115. I mean,
yeah,
the
exactly.
performance is just so much better.
Yeah, for sure. And you touched on it a little bit, but back in the early days of graphite, that was the exact intent for those, right? It was to be
Yeah.
lighter, to fly higher, to spin more, because all these old guys were playing these 130-gram steel shafts and they couldn't get the ball in the air. So that was kind of where the invention came from, right? That's where they came on the scene and started helping people's game. Well, we've seen this opportunity now that we have even more knowledge about what graphite does, and not to mention all the new materials and composites that are coming out annually. What we're able to do is the stiffness that we can create, like in our 115X, it's 15 cycles stiffer in the handle section than a Dynamic Gold X100. Like it's stout, but it doesn't feel or play that harsher boardy, right? Because it
No.
still has a smooth profile to it. So you want to talk about stiffness, like the graphite can and carbon fibers can get extremely more stiffer than steel ever can, especially at a
Oh,
weight to ratio. So it's
well,
just
like I said, that box you sent me had a 115 uh, Tour Spec X, and I mean, when you pulled it out, and you would have bent it, and it just doesn't move, and you're going to go, oh boy. But I mean, I could play it. Like it was one of those things where if it was in a set of irons, I could get around the course and play it.
yeah,
But for me, not being able to load that shaft the way it needs to be, I kind of had to play it as like, okay, this ball's probably going to go a little more right than where I'm aiming and all that. But like you said, it was smooth enough where you didn't feel like it was just beating you up through
yeah.
18 holes. I mean, you could easily play it. It's just, you'd kind of have to alter your shot or your aim point in order to make sure that you're, hitting the ball where you need to hit it. But that thing is insanely stiff.
Yeah, and I kind of sent it to you purposely for that, right? So you could, I mean, I know you're a true believer already, but it just goes to show you time and again, if somebody puts something in their hands and they're like, wow, this is too stiff and it's graphite, it's like, okay, so maybe I can play graphite. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that was kind of the thought process behind it. But
Yeah.
um, you know, I'm going to start to kind of close this thing out. I want to talk, because you've been such a Fuji fan for such a long time. Tell me about your all-time Fuji shaft.
So the all time is interesting. I've kind of got. So I mean, like everybody, I think the first one I ever hit was the Speeder 757, and our was the TaylorMade R510 TP. It came in the
Hmm.
shop. It was there. Knew nothing about it. Had no clue. Just knew it was expensive, and took it out on the range and hit it. And like I said, it was kind of cool because it was super expensive and all that. But probably my if you look back, and there's kind of two. I'll go. One was the Rombax 115i iron shafts. I got those put in a set of Callaway X Hot Pro or X Hot. Pros irons,
Hmm.
the originals, the OGs from like 2013.
Yep. The
And
orange and white.
that
Yeah.
the no no it was the first one was just red and black.
Oh,
The
that's right.
two
That's
was the
right.
orange one.
I remember that
So I
now.
had those, and those shafts, like, I mean, I already was like a believer in graphite iron shafts. I played a bunch. I'd played a ton of brands, and that one there was just like, whoa, like there's something to this whole, like at the time, this whole Rombax thing, this whole woven graphite and all that. But those were still one of my all-time favorites. Like if I could ever find a set, I think I'd put it in a set of clubs just for nostalgia.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my favorite. And then the other one was in a wood. The fairway woods have always been a struggle for me, especially off the turf. It took forever for me
Everybody.
to find ones.
Yeah.
And the first one that I really like loved and kept in the bag for a long time was it was a Callaway FTI Squareway, and it was a 5 wood head, and it was built on. They had a van that would drive around, and I was doing demo day stuff, and it would drive around to clubs, and it would build clubs right in the van
Oh yeah, I
for
remember
fitting.
those.
They'd
Yeah.
fit you, build them on the van. A couple hours later, you come pick them up. So we finished up doing one. The guy's like, "Hey, do you want like a club?" And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of need a 3 wood, but I hate 3 woods." And he goes, "Let me put something together for you," because he was watching me hit balls. So he goes in and he put a Vista Pro 70.
Oh
I think it
yeah.
was a Vista Pro, but
Or
anyway,
was
he
it?
put a Vista Pro.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was a Vista Pro. I think it was a Vista Pro. That was the more expensive, not the Vista Tour, right?
Correct.
I
Yeah.
think it was the Vista Pro. But he put a Vista Pro in a 5 wood head that he had the tour sleeve clocked open. So it was like a 16.5 degree head sitting dead, like flush, if not slightly open, with that Vista Pro 70. And that thing stayed in my bag for I don't know how many years. Like I hit that thing great for so long. And, it was one of those two shafts, Fuji shafts, really. I mean, there's other ones too. I mean, there's, but those two really stand out from back in the day that really either changed the way I was playing or changed the idea I had about graphite shafts in general.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was looking for because you are an all time user. You've been in the game a long time and you've loved Fuji a long time. To close it out, I do this with everybody. Round out your dream foursome, and you don't have to say me just because we're talking. And where would you play?
I mean, where I play is Augusta. I mean, it's the course that I mean, the Masters is my Super Bowl. My wife, when I married her, she knows that weekend, typically in April, she just basically leaves me alone in the back
Yeah.
room with the TV and, maybe throw some food in the room every once in a while. So it'd definitely be Augusta.
Yeah.
Um, it would probably honestly, as much as it would be cool to do like a Hogan Palmer, I think it would be uh, both my grandparents or my grandfathers who I never really played with. I played with my one grandfather. My one grandfather passed when I was 4. I
Yeah.
still have his irons actually up here in my shop,
How
sitting up
cool
here in
is
the
that,
rafters.
man? What are
Some
they?
some 72 Hogan Apex blades.
Oh my
So I've got them
gosh.
sitting up there.
How cool
Um,
is that?
and then my other grandfather who passed away a few years ago, I only played when I was really little with him. I never really played as an adult with him. So that those two, and then I would probably throw in like my dad. I mean, just to have fun. I mean, it'd be cool to say you played with Tiger, Nicholas, Player, whoever. But I think those three would be kind of my as you get older, you kind of realize time is limited, and you know
Absolutely, man.
it'd be cool to kind of to play that round.
Yeah, that'd be a cool experience for sure. I often think about that. My foursome looks very similar. So,
Yeah,
um, well, hey, I just want to thank you so much for coming on today, bud. To everyone listening out there, go check out the WRX TG2 pod with BK.
thank
He's
you.
got some great stuff on there. If you're a tech head, if you're a gear junkie like us, if you can sit here and listen to this stuff for an hour, there's one that does it all the time every week. So go check him out.
Thank you.
He's a great man, great friend, and great friend of Fuji. So thanks again, bud, for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. I feel honored to be part of the show. So thank you very much.
You're the man. All right, well, we'll talk to you soon, BK.
All right, sounds good.
All right, bye.